I'm Rodney Bryant. I'm the interim chief of the Atlanta Police Department. I retired after 31 years. I came on the police department in 1988. I was then asked to come back and actually in the position of the interim chief of corrections. And after 2 months there and doing the disturbances in the city of Atlanta, Chief Shields stepped down, and I was asked to be the interim chief of the Atlanta Police Department. So I have 3 adult children. My family lives here in Atlanta. My oldest daughter lives in South Carolina with her husband. And when I got the call on that Saturday morning, it was a short window that I had to address whether I would be able to take the position or not. And I acknowledged quickly, without having a conversation with my family. I sent them a text, and they didn't get their text or respond to the text until after the press conference. And so at that particular time, they started calling and asking, why was I getting out of retirement? What was I doing? Who did I talk to? But they know my heart. They know what I'm driven to do. But though it may have been confusing on the front end, they clearly recognized that this is something that I had to do, and they are in full support. When I came on the police department in 1988, I was assigned to Zone 3. At the time, Zone 3 was a very challenging area. It was one of the hardest areas to patrol in the city at that particular time. We had a number of housing projects, and so we had a number of incidences in that particular area. But I loved coming to work every single day during that time. It was a different time because this is right during the crack epidemic that I was there. So there was plenty to do for a young police officer, and a lot of situation and experiences to learn. After being there for about 9 years, I took the sergeant's exam and became a sergeant, and I was assigned to Zone 2. Up in Zone 2, I was there for about 3 years where I worked the morning watch the entire time. From there, I was assigned to Motor Unit, SOS Motor Unit, which is a phenomenal unit. I got so much and experienced so much there. I never thought I would have gotten on the Motor Unit. I remember coming on and never thought that I would ride motors, but was asked by the major at that particular time, would I come? And I really wasn't a rider like that. I knew how to ride, but wasn't a hardcore rider. But I thought that I would take up the challenge, and I'm glad that I did. I garnered a number of friends and a number of experiences, got to meet a number of people, did things that I never thought. I can remember the first time I did a presidential motorcade, and I was really excited to do that. And from there, I was assigned to Zone 4. And when I came on the police department, Zone 4 was the area that I truly wanted to be in because that's the area that I grew up in. And I always wanted to police that area. I was on Zone 4 as a sergeant and then got promoted to the rank of lieutenant. I was one of those fortunate lieutenants that didn't transfer out, but stayed on the exact same watch that I was working. So literally, I just changed desks from my sergeant's desk to the lieutenant's desk. From there, I got the opportunity to work in the areas of investigation. And after being there for a period of time, I was promoted to the position of assistant zone commander. We didn't have the rank of captain at that moment. At that time, we didn't have the rank of captain. So I was the assistant zone commander in Zone 3. And then a few months later, I went to the assistant zone commander of Zone 6. I think I was the assistant commander of both zones for a period of maybe a year and a half. And in June of 2010, I was promoted to the rank of major and went back to Zone 4. And I really enjoyed going back to the area that I resonated with, that I grew up in, to really have an area of command over, because I felt that I had the opportunity to make so many different changes in that area. I was there for 4.5 years, which at that particular time was a long time for a major to be in any zone. After being there for 4.5 years, I got promoted to the rank of deputy chief, and I was the commander of community service division. And from there, after serving in that role for 2 years, I was promoted to the rank of assistant chief. And then after, I was supposed to retire in 2018, but was asked to stay on to manage the Super Bowl, which we had planned for a number of years. And after managing the Super Bowl, I retired in 2019. When I saw the George Floyd incident on television, I was deeply disturbed. Because as it was playing out, I saw an individual literally lose their life on camera. And that's something that you just don't see every day. But the most disturbing part was it was at the hand of a police officer. And I knew at that very moment that this wasn't going to be good, that people were going to cry out, and rightfully so. I think it's important for an officers to recognize that they have a duty to intervene. We have a duty to intervene when we see incidences occurring in the street anyway. But more so when we recognize that an officer may be doing something that goes above or over the line. You're protecting not just yourself, not just that officer, but once again, you're protecting the individual that even though they may be being arrested, they're in your custody. You have a right to protect them. You have a duty to protect that person. And so we got to acknowledge and recognize that when we're seeing not just any citizen, but any police officer doing something that they shouldn't do, we have an obligation to intervene. As we went through the protests, and being that it was during the time of COVID, you could immediately see the drain and the morale start to plunge. And this is also on the heels of some officers being indicted and charged by the DA. And so the morale was really low. And this is at the time that I'm now stepping into this role as interim chief. And the first thing I have to do is to make sure that these men and women that serve on this department have the strength and the energy and the drive to get out there and do this again. And it takes strong leadership to do that. And so the first thing I had to do is get with the leadership team and say, we got to get out there with the men and women and show that we are a part. And one of the first directives that I implemented was changing our shirts. I wear the white shirt now because it signifies, it dignifies the level of leadership in this department. But we're one department, and so my working uniform day to day is generally the blue uniform that you would see with the men and women of this department, because we are one department. And immediately I told them that they had to get out and do roll calls and have conversations with the team, and then tell them exactly what it is that we need them to do. Additionally, to let them know that we will get beyond this, that this isn't our first time being in a place where our officers have been charged and that we've had to deal with levels of protest, that we will get beyond this, that you have to trust in this system, that this is a moment in time and we'll get through it. And that I was here to support them as much as I could possibly do it. One of the things I got to do is tell the men and women of Atlanta Police Department how proud I am of them. This is a challenging time for anyone to be a law enforcement officer. And to see the work that they continue to do day in and day out, you can't help but be proud. I live in this city. As I go home, I pass a police car. When I'm leaving and coming to work, I pass an Atlanta police car. And what that lets me know is there's someone filling in the gap, someone here to make sure that we are protected, even at night. We are having our challenges, but there are people who come to work every single day without fail. And we're seeing the improvements even during this time. This isn't just challenging for law enforcement, this is challenging for everybody. As we go through this unique time in our history, men and women of the police department haven't stopped. They haven't skipped a beat. They continue to do what they do. And the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department is at the forefront of doing it. And I think that when we get to the other side of history, people will look at Atlanta Police Department and see how we did it right. And it's the men and women that are here today that has done that. And I can't be more prouder to be a member of this department and to don this uniform.